Welcome to this Warhammer Dad terrain tutorial. This time I'm going to make some modular walls that you can see here. This is basically done. I built some bridges for a board I was doing, and I had a ton of leftover wall pieces, so I made a few extra, and then what I did is I put them together to make some modular walls that I could move around any kind of different which way. So this is a really easy, really fast tutorial. I probably have a lot more in here than you really need. You could probably figure it out just from looking at it, but without any further ado, on to the tutorial.
So here I'm at the bandsaw. I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but I figure I'll go ahead and record this, and if it does, I will post it. So I'm going to do some modular walls for probably more for a war machine or for a hobbit or something. So what I did is I went ahead and I made a bunch of little pieces of wall, and these are the two sizes I decided I was going to use. So the first thing I did was I cut out all of my little modular bases. They're going to be my bases. So the way I did this is I just I found the one this length, the other this length. They're going to kind of stack like that and like this. So whatever length wall you use, I just came out to my bandsaw. You can use anything you want. The easiest thing for me to do was to just measure my length, cut those, and that way I know that this will be laying halfway off on either side if I center it. And then to do the width, just did this. And then I've cut up a whole bunch of those. So the next step will be, once I had all these cut off, and really I just made it to length, I cut a big strip off of what I had left over, and then you're going to end up just sanding the bottom edges just to round it a little bit and to take off all the little hardboard fuzzies. So next step will be to actually glue the walls onto these square pieces. So here's the first test fit. Came in 1 inch from either side, 1 1/4 inches in from the middle, and then just set this, and then they can be end to end, in which case this piece will slide in. One thing I haven't tried is, will it work this way? And this, I think I'm going to have a problem because it's not completely even. Nope. That will come close to working as well. Alright, so tried it all 3 ways, and it seems to fit. So after a little measuring, I realized that the width, the height of one wall was not going to be tall enough. So I went ahead and doubled up the size on these, and then went ahead and built some with just some damage to them. So next step is to let these dry, and then we'll come back and start working on some basing. Okay, so basically I'm at the point where I've been laying down the glue. I lay it down in a real thin layer. Just put the glue down, put my sand on there. Using my paper, packing paper from the last time I moved to hold stuff down. Now what you want is a really thin layer so that when you put the intervening walls in between, you won't have a whole lot of gap. So I'm keeping my layer real thin. I'm immediately just dumping it right back off. I'm just looking for some texture. I'm not looking for much else. And then I did a test, and what you can see is that they're really, if you can keep that layer nice and thin, there's not much of a discernible difference in height. So, I mean, there's a little bit, but you know, that's going to be unavoidable, because if you try and leave tracks down, then it's going to look really silly for the areas where you don't have wall. Alright, so 2 more to go, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alright, just finished up the next step. Basically, I glued a few rocks on, making sure that they stayed out of the path. for the cross beams. And then I just took some old latex paint from a modular hills project I did and laid that down over the sand. And then the next step, once that dries, will be to start working on painting the walls. Alright, I apologize for the mess in here. I got 2 or 3 different projects going on. Bridge over there, which is where a lot of these scraps came from. What I did is I just took some very cheap 33 cents a bottle craft paint, mixed a brown and a dark brown, and watered it down, and just did the first coat, a base coat after that latex. And this is just to show you the difference in the 2 colors. After this, I'll finish that up, and then I will do dry brush of probably 3 or so successive lighter brown colors before I go to flocking. And then my theory is that there's going to be mud on the bottom of these walls anyway, so I'm not really that worried about getting a little bit of dirt there, and I'm going to paint the walls anyway, so don't worry too much about being neat. Alright, just a quick update. I have gone through and dry brushed a couple places. You can see right there I made sort of a little mess, but in those spots I will just cover it with grass and call it a happy day. Alright, next step is to paint these walls. I'm going to start with a dark gray, and then I'll dry brush through a couple of successive colors of gray. You could damage the walls and make them all battle worn, but I've decided not to do that for this go round. Alright, here they are with the first coat of gray drying. Have to water it down a little bit to get in all those little crevices, and as you can see, I'm going to come back and do another coat, and once this dries I can see where I've missed, and I got to get the ends where I was hanging on to those. If I had this to do again, I think what I would do is do the walls first and use an airbrush to get down in all those little crevices. That's the hardest part. If you over water the paint, then you can see right through it, and if you underdo it, then it's tough to get down in the crevices. So I'll let this dry. I'll come back, do another round to get all the little areas, and then I'll move on to dry brushing the walls. Okay, so I am partway through the first dry brush. It's really more of a, I don't know, a wet brush, sort of halfway in between. But here is one that has not been dry brushed yet, and one that has. Can't tell a whole lot of difference at this point. I've not done the tops of these as well, just because I needed someplace to hold on to them. This was the dark gray I used. It was one of those ones I picked up for 33 cents. I was actually out of a medium gray, so it disappeared, so I took a little bit of the regular gray, mixed a little bit of the black. You can see I overdid it there and made it dark gray, so then I came over and made it into a light gray. Once I do this, then I'll just do a straight light gray, and then I will probably mix with maybe this parchment color, or actually I guess that's parchment, or I do have a light gray. I'll probably just go with that. And then I didn't show you, but here were the 3 colors I used in the browns after I had laid my original latex down. Back to dry brushing. Okay, so round 2 of dry brushing. This is just a regular gray, again fairly heavy, but you can see the difference. Not as heavy as the last one, but heavier than a normal dry brush. Next go around I'll start really lightening it up. Alright. Okay, the next dry brush is done, and this was a mix of a medium gray and a light gray, and basically what I did was I just made sure everything I was doing in a downward motion so it hit the top edges. I'm going to do one more, just a true light gray, and then I'll call it a day on the dry brush and move on to the little rocks and then start flocking. Alright, there it is after the last just light gray dry brush. With that one I really just hit the top and then the first row of the cobblestones and left the bottom alone. I'm going to come through, probably do a little black wash just to tie everything in together, and then move on to flocking and the rocks. Okay, I brought them inside to work on the rocks just because it's easier to do it in here. I am going to use these Reaper paints. Also, you start with shadowed stone, then go to stone gray, and then I'll move over to weathered stone. And then it will be time to start laying down flock. Okay, so here they are. Get a little more light. Ready for getting some tough turf put on. What I've done is just grabbed some of my turf from other projects. I've mixed it up into a little bag, or a little thing here. I'm going to go with not quite fall, but definitely not a spring version, a little darker. Things to be cognizant of though, and I think the most difficult part about doing this is going to be remembering that you know, you can't get it in that path or in these paths, and trying to figure out how to make that look natural while still not inhibiting those is going to take some thought. But anyway, the way I normally do this is, to be perfectly honest, glue, throw it down, dump the turf on it, and let it sit. It's not a very difficult thing. So anyway, let me put some turf down and I will be back. Alright, so here's how I decided to do it. I'm laying out a few of them at a time, laying down some walls, and then putting in the glue around the walls. Messed up a little bit on those two because I went ahead and did over here. I don't have enough side walls, and got across it, but we'll see how that works out. But anyway, this is how I am trying to avoid that and giving them a little bit of matching capability. Alright, so here are the finished pieces. They're flocked. One thing I found was in a couple areas where I mistakenly flocked where the walls were going to be, it really didn't make a whole lot of difference. It still fit pretty well. I went ahead and put a few little vines up there. That's easy. You just run a little bit of glue in a bead and throw the flock on it. So let me set up a couple of different variations of this and be right back. Alright, so here's just a square wall, and then what I did was I made some small pieces that can fit either this way or can fit that way to end sections. And then these pieces just come in the middle. One thing that I may do is go back and resand the edges so they come together a little more flush. But you can easily change the shape of these to make it any way you want. And just put in whatever kind of walls you want. And then a few broken pieces here and there. Whoops. And there, so now you have another different formation. So this will work any number of ways. I think it'll come in handy. I think it's a little nicer than just having the plain brick walls there. But you know, that would do just as well. Alright, and when you're, I'm sure you'll be bored with me doing this here very shortly, but so this will be the last one. But you see you get the picture. It will go any way you want, however you want. And you could add as many pieces or as few as you want. Alright, well, that is the end of this quick tutorial. Probably took a lot more time than it really needed to. But a very simple thing. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Until next time, this is Warhammer Dad signing out.